"Don't move!" The words were sharp, followed by the sound of fists hitting brick. Vincent's breath caught as three shadows closed in, their power suffocating, their intent unmistakable. For the first time in his life, the billionaire felt truly defenseless. Then, an unexpected crack echoed through the alley. A ball, rolling, spinning, breaking the silence. The men froze, startled, turning toward the source. And there she stood, tiny, trembling, but unyielding. A little girl who refused to let fear win. This is the story of a billionaire ambushed, and the child who changed everything. Comment your city below. It was a night like any other for Vincent Hale, a man whose name carried weight in boardrooms and headlines. To the world, he was the untouchable billionaire whose wealth built empires, whose face appeared on magazine covers, whose decisions shifted markets. But beneath that image, Vincent was also a man who valued solitude. He had always believed that walking alone helped him think clearly, away from the endless flashing cameras and suffocating luxury that followed his daily life. That evening, the city seemed quieter than usual. Streetlights flickered in uneven intervals, throwing long shadows across the cracked pavement. Vincent adjusted his coat against the cool breeze, taking a detour through a narrow alley to avoid the traffic-filled streets. He had walked this way before. It was faster, more direct, and in his mind, perfectly harmless. For someone used to the security of chauffeured cars and private jets, the idea of slipping unnoticed through the city gave him a strange sense of normalcy. Yet the deeper he went, the more the air shifted. The glow of wealth and success no longer surrounded him, only the dim light of a city that never quite slept. His polished shoes tapped against the uneven ground, echoing too loudly for comfort. He tried to brush off the unease, reminding himself that he was still in control, still safe. But behind him, the distant shuffle of footsteps whispered otherwise. Vincent slowed his pace, pretending not to notice. His mind flickered between calm rationality and an instinctive tension that told him something wasn't right. He wasn't the kind of man easily rattled. Still, tonight, the silence felt heavier, as though the shadows themselves were watching. What Vincent didn't know was that this ordinary walk would not end as planned. Because hidden in the darkness of that alley was a danger he could never have predicted, and a savior he could never have imagined. The shuffle of footsteps grew clearer. At first, Vincent told himself it was just another passerby, someone heading home like him. But when he quickened his pace, the steps followed. When he slowed, they slowed. The air pressed tighter around him, heavy with a warning he could no longer ignore. From the corner of his eye, he caught movement. A shadow detached itself from the brick wall ahead, another from the right, and soon a third emerged behind him. 3 men. Their faces partly hidden by hooded sweatshirts, their stance deliberate and predatory. Vincent's chest tightened as he realized he had walked into a trap. For a man who spent his life surrounded by bodyguards and locked behind bulletproof glass, the alley suddenly felt like a cage. The wealth that usually shielded him meant nothing here. No chauffeurs were waiting at the curb, no executives eager to protect their investment. Just a billionaire alone, cornered by strangers who knew the city's shadows better than he ever could. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The intent in their eyes was clear: control, power, and a twisted thrill of having someone so untouchable at their mercy. Vincent took a step back, but every direction was blocked. His heart pounded harder with each passing second. The tallest of the 3 edged closer, his fists clenched, his body language taunting. The second shifted to cut off Vincent's retreat, while the third lingered behind, scanning for witnesses. But the alley was deserted, silent, indifferent. Fear clawed at Vincent in a way he had never known. He had survived stock market crashes, boardroom betrayals, and public scandals, but nothing had prepared him for this raw vulnerability. He was no longer the powerful man on the magazine covers. He was just a target. Panic surged through him as the first attacker lunged forward, shoving him against the wall. The impact sent pain shooting through his back, and for the first time in years, Vincent felt utterly powerless. He tried to resist, pushing back, but his strength was nothing compared to the calculated aggression of 3 men who had done this before. His watch was yanked from his wrist, his wallet stripped from his pocket. But it wasn't just about money. There was something darker in their eyes, a cruelty that hinted this wouldn't end with theft. Vincent gasped for air, his mind racing with regret. Why had he walked here alone? Why had he believed his wealth somehow insulated him from the city's dangers? But amid the chaos, his eyes flicked toward the far end of the alley, and that's when he saw her, a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 9 or 10, standing half-hidden near the edge of the streetlight. In her hands was a worn, brightly colored ball, scuffed from play. Her wide eyes darted between Vincent and the men surrounding him, fear etched into every part of her tiny frame. She could have run. She could have turned away, as so many others might have. But something about the way she gripped that ball, the way her gaze narrowed with a mix of fear and defiance, suggested she wouldn't. Vincent hardly had time to process it before one of the men raised his arm, fist drawn back, preparing to strike harder this time. The girl stepped forward, her breath quick, her grip tightening, and in that moment, with danger closing in, her choice would change everything. The man's fist swung back, ready to land a devastating blow. Vincent braced himself, eyes shutting for an impact he knew he couldn't stop. But before the strike connected, a sharp sound cracked through the alley, a hollow thud followed by the clang of metal. One of the attackers stumbled, clutching his temple in shock. The ball. The little girl's ball. It rolled across the ground, spinning wildly before settling at Vincent's feet. The attackers froze, their rhythm broken by something they hadn't expected. They turned, eyes narrowing at the small figure now standing fully in the open. Her chest heaved, her face fierce despite the tremble in her hands. For a moment, the world paused. A child, barely tall enough to reach their shoulders, had interrupted their cruelty. Not with weapons, not with screams. Just courage wrapped in the innocence of a ball thrown with all her strength. Rage twisted across the men's faces, but their hesitation was apparent. Someone had seen them. Someone had dared to act. Their dominance fractured under the weight of a child's bravery. Vincent, still pressed against the wall, stared in disbelief. The most powerful deal-maker in the city was rescued not by security or the system, but by a little black girl who refused to stay silent in the shadows. The men exchanged quick glances. Their control had slipped, and in the silence that followed, everything began to change. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments. The men hesitated, their swagger broken by the girl's fearless interruption. What once seemed like an easy target had now become risky. Their glances darted between Vincent and the small figure who dared to strike first. In that brief pause, headlights swept across the alley as a passing car slowed, the driver curious about the commotion. The attackers cursed under their breath, realizing eyes were now on them. One shoved Vincent roughly against the wall before retreating. Another spat on the ground, and within seconds, they vanished into the maze of streets. Silence lingered, broken only by Vincent's unsteady breathing. He slid down the wall, his expensive suit torn, his pride battered. But his gaze was fixed not on his wounds, but on the little girl standing a few feet away. She looked at him with a mixture of fear and determination, her ball now still at his feet as if it had always belonged there. For Vincent, the moment was shattering. All his wealth, all his power, and none of it had saved him. Instead, his life had been spared by someone society too often ignored, a young black girl whose bravery defied every assumption of weakness. The image burned into his mind, her small frame standing against the shadows, courage greater than men twice her size. He realized this wasn't only about him, it was about the voices and lives often silenced, yet capable of extraordinary strength. How many heroes like her go unseen every day? How many stories of courage are hidden behind the world's indifference? Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more powerful stories. Never forget, sometimes the smallest voices carry the most incredible power.